Hey guys, what's going on? Today we've got an overview for Defeat Sanity's Passages into Deformity. Background, we're playing one of my favorite OSDM albums, Loyal Creations, Retribution. Awesome shit. So this is Defeat Sanity's fourth full-length. One of their best and one of their most popular for good reason. I'd say this is probably their most accessible, at least from a production standpoint. You can definitely tell they had probably a bigger budget with this one as they did with, as opposed to the albums before it. This one has probably the most like jazzy shit going on in it out of any of their albums. So this one's really proggy in a lot of ways. The production, while it's on the cleaner side of things, it's not like shitty and sterile. I actually really like the production on here, and I'll talk about it. But this one just has a little bit less of a analog kind of sound to it. This one sounds a little more digital, while the ones before are a lot more, have that bassy kind of dull sound. This one, it's still scooped as fuck, but it's a little more digital sounding. The vocalist on the song, I forget his name, but his vocals are some of the best they've had. This is just a really intense album. So, the album cover's cool. It's never really been my favorite album cover for them. I don't really know why. Something about it just looks very simple, which isn't a bad thing, but I don't know. It's never really stood out that much to me. But it's still a cool album cover. It's just not my favorite thing from them. Not as morbid as the albums before this. Defeat Sanity was never a crazy gore band per se, but there's the back. Track listing, you got Initiation, Naraka, Verblendung, Lusting for Transcendence, The Purging, Verses of Deformity, Perspectives, Frenzy, and Martyrium. Martyrium, I believe, was a bonus track. There's a version of that that's a bonus track on my vinyl copy of Chapters of Repugnance. This is a little deluxe 2-disc thing. You got cool disc cover. It has a DVD. I've seen the DVD on YouTube before I got the CD, but I've never actually watched the DVD copy itself. Cool little disc cover. Rest in peace. What's his name? Wolfgang. I believe Defeat Sanity started as a father-son band, Lily Gruber and this guy. So this album was, made in his memory. Like what it says, every drop of blood, sweat, and tears that went into the making of this album is dedicated to Wolfgang Teske. January 2nd, 1953 to September 12th, 2010. Rip brother. And you could tell they were like on a mission with this album, because this is a really fucking top tier album. I don't know, this album has this special little touch to it that some of their other albums don't. I'm not saying this is their best. It's probably my third favorite from them. But if you're not into like even if you're not a brutal death metal fan, this is an album that you might enjoy. If you're into like Cryptopsy, you'll love this, because this has a lot of similar like aspects of that technicality. You have some lyrics on here. The lyrics on here are a little less like gory and more like kind of philosophical, I suppose. It's a picture of the band. That's a picture of the band that you see in a lot of places. Actually, I've seen that picture everywhere. Cool stuff. So I'd say the things that stand out with the production of this album are the guitars. The guitars are a lot less bassy on here, and they're still really scooped, but they're a lot louder in the mix. The drums not super loud in the mix, but you could obviously hear them. Some of Lily Gruber's best drum work on this thing. I mean, there's some super satisfying fills to listen to. A lot of really jazzy stuff going on. Yeah, it's just so fucking like catchy but technical. So the opening track, Initiation, one of their best intro tracks they've ever done. I mean, like I've said before, Defeat Sanity is great with intro tracks, and that song is so fucking cool. It just sounds really nasty, and it shows off like the vocals, which the vocals on this album are nasty as fuck. He does a lot of different variation. He has these like kind of, I don't know how to explain it, like these really like wet, kind of not gurgly, but it's like a gurgly sounding like high-ish. It kind of reminds me of Maddie Way almost, but a little bit less bassy and a little more like high. Those vocals are awesome, just really like just aggressive and violent sounding. And he also has some regular like mids that he does on here. So the vocals on here, they're not super, like they're pretty insane, but they're not like something really unaccessible if you're not into brutal death metal. The bass on here is audible for most of the album, which I really like. There's some great fucking bass work on here from Jacob Schmidt. I believe that's his last name. His bass work on here is fantastic. Of course, really technical stuff. There's like a drum and bass fill in Verblendung, and there's also the bass shines a lot on here. Also at the beginning of Naraka, it just sounds really proggy and awesome. There's some god tier fucking riffs on here, which I'll talk about. Naraka, one of the best songs on here. There's just so many satisfying riffs and just awesome moments on that song. It's just really aggressive and catchy, but in a very intelligent way. It's not like a simple slammy kind of catchy. It's more like a Cryptopsy's None So Vile kind of catchy. It's just really fun to listen to. Verblendung, awesome fucking breakdown at the end with some little pauses and some really awesome jazzy fills. There's some really weird like interludes on here that are like there's one that's like just a simple little like electronic drum beat after Verblendung. Lusting for Transcendence is another really cool track. I really like the intro. A lot of little technical flashy hooks throughout this album. Martyrium is a cool little like outro song. I believe there's some guest vocals from the vocals on the album before this, AJ Madonna on Frenzy, I think. A lot of the songs past like the first three kind of don't stick out quite as much to me. Besides Versus in Deformity, that's another really great track. It's a really solid album though, still nonetheless. I feel like there's some focus on groove on this album a little more, but like I said, in a more intelligent way, which is very unique. I mean, there's some parts where you'll hear like a guitar comes in with the riff, like just the guitar, and you'll expect like a certain groove to be played along with that, and then they do something completely different than what you expect. And it's just a really unique way of going about things. This is probably their most technical album, to be honest. Besides maybe like the Disposal of the Dead / Dharmata, the Dharmata side I'm referring to mainly. I'll review that next, because I actually got that on CD recently. And like I said, I'm trying to get all the reviews for their albums so I can do an albums ranked video. This is a solid fucking album though. It's not my favorite. I would say this one isn't quite as brutal as the two albums before it. It's not quite as blunt, but it's still very fun to listen to. And it is still really brutal and aggressive. It's a pretty brutal fucking album. It's just not as, it's not quite as, like, bassy sounding, I'd say. It sounds a lot more trebly in the production, but I still love the production on here. It's just very different from everything else they've done. That's one of the things I like about Defeated Sanity a lot, is that all their albums sound very different. They're not afraid to try anything new either. They change their sound a lot, you know. But the first album, pretty straightforward, brutal death metal, kind of technical flares here and there. Songs of the Moribund, even more brutal, but with some like jazzy kind of stuff going on. Then Chapters of Repugnance, a lot more fucking, a lot more chuggy riffs going on, harder hitting production and less emphasis on blast beat parts. This album, even more emphasis on those chuggy, groovy riffs, but from a different kind of angle. And it lets all the instruments really shine on here. I mean, you could listen to this and just focus on one particular instrument throughout the entire album and never get bored, really. This album has this very aggressive feel to it, which I really enjoy. And yeah, you could tell they were trying really hard with this album to make a fucking masterpiece. Honestly, I would probably give this like a 9.5 out of 10. It's a damn good album. Which is weird because I think I gave the album before this a 9 out of 10, and I like Chapters of Repugnance a little more. But not by that much, but this is a standout album for Defeated Sanity. I do kind of have to be in the mood for this album. If I'm just in the mood for a brutal death metal album, I could throw on any of their other albums, but this one stands out a little more. They have their own voice on this album, really. If you just want to, you know, your average brutal death metal album, you want to hear some blast beats, you know, and hear some slams, you probably won't get that from this. If you do want a good brutal death metal album, this is still, like, fantastic, but it's definitely not run-of-the-mill in any way at all. It's not beating potatoes in any way. I'm not saying it's super weird, experimental, and jazzy or anything. It's kept to the point where it's like, it doesn't sound fucking really out there and weird. It's still like relatable to listen to, but it's different. It's a really cool album. So yeah, Defeated Sanity, Passages into Deformity. I always forget the titles for other albums. It's weird. That was a weird stutter. But yeah, killer fucking album. If you haven't listened to Defeated Sanity, this is not at all a bad place to start. This and Psalms of the Moribund were my first two albums I ever heard from them. This one really got me into them though. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. See you next time. Bye.